Is Jen McCormick. I'm the director at the library here, and I am glad that you have all come to our candidate forum for Wards 7, 8, and 9. Special thanks to the League of Women Voters for pulling these excellent events together. We couldn't do it without them, and we're happy that they chose the Nashua Library for these. Before we get started with tonight's forum, I'd like to invite you all to come back next Thursday at 6:30 for the Board of Education Candidate Forum. There's a few more candidates at that one, so we'll be hosting that forum right around the corner in the Chandler Wing. There's be plenty of seating, and our friends George and Bob will be back to televise that. So I hope you ask some good questions and enjoy the forum. Thank you.
All right, and regardless of quantity of the Board of Education, we have quality in terms of aldermen here. So this is where we really shine. Thank you for attending tonight. My name is Dave Alcox. I've been asked by the League of Women Voters to be part of tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan group that would like to get opinions, voices, and ideals heard out into the general public, such as yourself. We're honored to have people from Ward 7, 8, and 9 representing. I do have a letter that I will also be reading from a gentleman who won't be able to attend or may be coming in later, Mr. John Sullivan. But let me just do some quick ground rules. What will happen is I will do a quick introduction, then I will have the candidates introduce themselves, about a minute long or so. Following that, we'll have a variety of questions, which will rotate in different orders, so everybody will get a chance to start off at different times. And they'll have about a minute or so to answer. We have our two lovely ladies up front that are like the two in the Muppets in the movie theater that will come down and certainly zap you if you don't get your timing in correctly. And so definitely let's adhere to that. And at the end, we will have a final wrap-up from our candidates, and hopefully we will wrap up around 8:45. I do have Dave McLaughlin's letter right here, and I'm going to read that letter now, and then hopefully we'll have Mr. Sullivan come in and read his letter, or come in a little later. And this is Dave McLaughlin's letter, who he is he is running in Ward 8. In spite of my best efforts to physically attend this event, due to my professional obligations, I regret I am unable to join you and those in attendance this evening. I wish to express my gratitude and appreciation of the League of Women Voters for their patience and willingness to sponsor an event such as this, which is somewhat akin to herding cats in an effort to inform and educate the voting public. As a 23-year resident of Ward 8, having had the privilege of living and working in this ward, I know the neighborhoods as well as anyone, as I am running in this fall's election to offer my experience to the residents and taxpayers who are dealing with this ever-increasing levels of spending and bonding put forward by the current mayor and the majority of the Board of Aldermen. As I work the doors of Ward 8, I am struck by the significant number of longtime residents who have moved, put their homes up for sale, and no longer call Nashua their home. I'm concerned that a majority of Ward 8 taxpayers, seniors, and veterans are struggling in the current economy, in many cases living paycheck to paycheck, dealing with higher costs of food, gas, and energy, yet the mayor and the majority of the Board of Aldermen continue to spend as if the good times roll. When I was the Ward 8 Alderman, I was a voice of fiscal moderation. I know how the budget process works and how and when to ask for necessary questions. I was never a rubber stamp for the mayor of the city unions. I view this position as nonpartisan and resist the latest trend to align with a political party. I am self-funding my campaign and have declined financial support from any political party or organization. Potholes, streetlights, fire engines, police cars are nonpartisan, and we all pay a lot of taxes. If you feel you've had enough and want some restraint in the rate of the city spending, if you're overwhelmed by the excuse that your taxes are caused by the lame blame being passed down by Concord, or tired of the group that characterizes this current majority of the Board of Aldermen, then I would appreciate your vote. Thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Dave McLaughlin of Ward 8. Would you like me to read John Sullivan's, or shall we give him time? Perfect. Oh, so he can. Perfect. That's great news. Okay, well, great. Well, we will start with introductions and such. And this is the one time I'm going to single out somebody, and it's going to be you, Derek, because you're the only incumbent right now that's here. So what I'd like to do is, if you can, before your introduction, just explain a little bit about the ward, what an alderman is and does in our city. And then if we could have your introduction, that would be wonderful, and that would help people who might be sitting in the audience.
Sure. So an alderman is someone that creates the rules, what we call ordinances, right? The laws of our city, and we help pass or don't pass the budget for the mayor. It's also we support the people in. For us as a ward alderman, we support the people in our ward. If they have those potholes or street signs down or trees that are on city property that are falling, they can call us, and we can certainly have somebody from DPW go out there and take a look. So it's all about supporting the community, it's supporting your ward, but it's also thinking about all of Nashua at the same time as you are trying to make the laws of the city. And yeah, I mean, that's it, man, as simple as it can be. As far as my introduction, Derek Tebow, I'm the Ward 8 Alderman. I've been doing this for 2 years. Prior to that, I've been a leader for almost 30 years. I was born here in Nashua, and I've lived in Ward 8 about 30 years now, almost 30 years. So, been there a long time. I've coached baseball for the last 14 years, so I'm involved in the community. There's a lot to do. There's still infrastructure, parking garages, firehouses, lots of things we still have to fix in the city. I want to continue to be part of the solutions to these issues and try to tackle them and try to continue to make Nashua go forward, fight for the future of Nashua, not go back to the past. The past is behind us. Let's go forward. Thank you.
Mr. Jack.
Thank you, League of Women Voters. My name is Marty Jack. I'm a candidate for Alderman in Ward 9. I'm serving my 6th term as a state representative from Ward 9. So that on the Public Works and Highways Committee, that committee handles the highway construction budget and also the state property construction budget. So I have a deep understanding of construction and how budgeting is done.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Snott.
Yes, thank you first to the League of Women Voters, to the National Public Library for hosting this forum here tonight. My name is Tim Sennett. I am running for Alderman in Ward 7. Been serving the residents of Ward 7 for the last 6 years as an election official. I've served 1 term as a ward selectman and the last 2 consecutive terms as the ward moderator over there. I've been a resident of Nashua for almost 30 years. I live in Crown Hill with my wife and our young son. And throughout my time in Nashua, I've seen what our city can look like when there is stagnated investment and development going back into our city. And I've seen what our city can be when we put focused investment and development back into our city. And I personally think that the latter makes for a much more vibrant and exciting place to live, to work, to raise a family. And that's the type of city that I want to be part of fostering and helping to grow on the Board of Aldermen.
Thank you. Ms. Ziem?
My name is Sandra Ziem, and I'm hoping to get your vote in Ward 7 as well. The experience that I think I bring to the job would be, of course, most of you know I served on the Board of Education for 14 short years. It was, it had its highs and lows like anything else, but I do consider it an honor to have had that, to be able to serve the children of our city. And the other experience I have is I'm a small business owner. I own a real estate company, and I also have a mortgage company. I think that gives me a little knowledge of housing. And I see I get the fan, so I'll talk to you all later.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm going to start with Mr. Jack, actually, and work my way down. Mr. Jack, and this is going to be for everybody as well, being a resident of Nashua and coming onto the Board of Aldermen, what is a project that you would want to take under your wing that you think needs attention? Obviously you're running for a reason. Are there any particular projects that you would want to take on, as a member?
One of the things I've been a lead on at the state level is passenger rail, so that's right off the bat. I believe the other 2 problems that we have are the affordable housing situation and property tax relief. So I would try to work on those 3 items.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tebow?
Yeah, so those are great things, and I think we probably need to do all three of those as well. But for me, and Alderman O'Brien may fight me to get to this thing, but we don't have enough fire stations based on what they tell our fire departments or our fire department in the city. We just don't have enough. In the northwest quadrant over in Amherst Street, we used to get help from the Merrimack Fire Station, the little one there. We no longer get that help. And getting up Amherst Street, the closest one outside of the airport is all the way down Amherst Street, which is all the way down, right by Holman Stadium. So we really need to do something there. It's not going to happen in the next couple of years, but we got to start laying the groundwork for that and how we're going to pay for it. So it will take a little bit of time, and but I'd like to work with the fire department, the fire chief Buxton, on how we can do that, because that will help keep the city safe as well.
Thank you. Ms. Ziem?
Well, because I'm in real estate, I guess real estate is near and dear to my heart. And the circumstances, I understand that one of our candidates has told me that we currently have 2,000 units being put up. Some of those units have no green space at all. The Bronstein Apartments, 216 units, and I asked if there was a place for the kids to play, and I was told by the mayor, and certainly he didn't create it, but there is no green space there. And they have 5-bedroom apartments there. So we need green space, and I wish we had, I'll share more of my hot air later.
Oh, please finish your thought, please.
Well, I'm sorry, but to me, there wasn't enough public input. When we did all of these, if we're doing 2,000 units, how many of you knew we were doing that many? I can tell you I didn't, and I'm pretty active in the city. So I think if we had forums where the public could come and hear about all of this need, and then we could have had some input, which I think would be invaluable, because I think what we need more than anything else in our community is engaged members, community members who care and who give it their all. Thank you for the extension.
Thank you. Mr. Sennett?
Resident of Crown Hill in Ward 7, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't jump right into homelessness. It's a topic that I think is at the top of many Ward 7 residents' minds right now with the recent relocation of the homeless encampment over on Crown Street. And it's something that's fed from a lot of issues that are plaguing the city of Nashua right now in terms of how the housing crisis, substance abuse. And what I would like to do is to partner with organizations throughout the city, nonprofits that are combating these, and work on stronger private-public partnerships so that we can begin to look at proactive long-term solutions for these rather than reactive solutions like we've seen in recent weeks.
Thank you, sir. And I'm actually going to come back, and I'm going to go off of one of the comments you made in your opening statement. You said that you've seen money spent wisely and you've seen money spent not so wisely. Maybe if people on the board would like to, candidates would like to expand upon that, where do you think Nashua has spent money well, and where do you think Nashua could maybe improve in some of their spending? And that'll be for everybody, but I'll start with Mr. Sennett.
Yes, certainly. I think anybody that's gone through our downtown recently in recent years has really seen it come into its own as a downtown with a new identity that maybe those of us who were living here in the 90s or even earlier maybe weren't so familiar with. I know growing up as a child playing on Main Street back in the 90s, it wasn't a very exciting place to be. There wasn't a whole lot going on, and I am happy to say that with focus on downtown, there is a lot going on now, and I'm very happy to see that having come into its own. Somewhere I think we definitely need to place special focus is on some of our aging infrastructure. Living in Crown Hill. Crown Hill is a very aged neighborhood. We have a lot of aged piping systems that are affecting the homeowners that live there. We have areas down the south end of Nashua that are very prone to flooding during periods of high rain. And I think we need to reevaluate these spaces and see what we can do to invest in those and make them better for the residents here.
Well, my favorite project that has been done was the roads. I remember there was quite a fuss when that got approved to have all our roads in the city repaved. Unfortunately, Crown Hill is the last one to seem to get it, but ours are going to last longer because we got them later. So I am very pleased with, I thought that was money well spent. Unfortunately, when you're spending money, you want everything, but you can't have everything. And sometimes the really hardest decisions are what to give way to so that you can have the other thing.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with candidate Ziem. So, you know, the 10-year plan to pave the streets, I think that is money well spent, because prior to that, we're in the middle of that, we're probably around year 6 or 7 now. Prior to that, streets were in real bad shape. And the paving program, although we want all the streets paved right now at the same time, it's just not possible to happen, right? So there's been this plan to get them all paved in 10 years, putting stuff in them that's going to make it better so they last longer, so we don't have to do it quite the same way. And at some point, you know,
And affordable, you know, income-based housing so that folks can get into, you know, inside, not on the streets, not in a vacant lot. And that people who do have, you know, ambitions and the means to get into situations of homeownership are able to move up there and free up more affordable spaces for those who aren't.
Thank you. Mr. Tebow, background and expertise of being a coach for a number of years. Ms. Ziem was talking about green spaces. Do you believe Nashua has an adequate amount of green spaces for their children? And if we continue to build houses, will that take away from green space? And what can we do to maybe, you know, provide for the youth of our children?
Yeah, absolutely, thank you. So I believe currently we have plenty of green space. You know, there's one ward, and I believe it's Ward 4, that could use some green space, and that's, you know, right downtown. You know, and they're going to get some riverfront revitalization that will help get some green space down there. But they don't really have a park per se. They have small parks, but they don't have a park like some of these other wards do. And by the way, Ward 8 doesn't have a park, but we can use 2 that are right on the end. And I think we have plenty of parks. If you go around, plenty of parks. We have green, you know, obviously we have Mines Falls, we have Greeley Park. And I don't agree with taking away green space that the city owns. We can't really do a whole lot when a developer owns a piece of land and they want to build on it. You know, to a certain extent, they can do that. But, you know, I think currently we have great parks in the city. It's why a lot of people come from outside of, you know, Nashua to come here, to go to Greeley Park, to go to Mines Falls.
Mr. Jack?
Yeah, we have Greeley Park, which is a huge open space. We have parks scattered through the city. You could count Mine Falls Park as green space, although it's largely wooded. So I think we're all right, except for a few exceptions in wards that are not well covered. One example that came up recently is the new development over by the Hudson Bridge.
Thank you. Mr. Sennett?
Yeah, I mean, we do have very good stock of quality parks and green spaces throughout the city. I do, however, have concerns about the incoming developments that are being planned for areas such as the Temple Street Circle over the Henry Hanger Building, is currently situated, as well as developments planned for the corner of Temple and Spruce Street. These are very densely populated inner city areas, and we've got plenty of buildings and vacant space to build upon, but these folks are going to be coming in without green spaces to really call their own in their immediate areas. And it's a particular focus that I'd like to see us do as we look for more opportunities to expand our housing stock.
Thank you. Ms. Ziem?
I was not referring to the fact that we don't have parks. We
Oh, no.
certainly have beautiful parks. I was referring more to what Mr. Sennett was saying. If you look at the Bronstein, in a conversation with the mayor, he clearly said to me that there really was no green space there for children. They have 5-bedroom units there. What would you do with a 5-bedroom unit? You're going to have 3 or 4 children. At least I would. And so there is a small park there, but it's like 7,000 square feet, and it's in a very densely populated area, and it is also a high crime area. And so those children are going to be playing on the streets of downtown Nashua. I'm sorry, but nobody's child should have to play on the sidewalks of Down Street. I just think it's funny. I wish we had a symposium where we could have had a conversation, the whole community contributing. We need to engage as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're excited to have one more person engage with us today. Look, we're growing.
I know. Sorry
This-
I'm late, everybody.
No, we're very excited to have you, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you.
Is your mic up and running at this point? Can
Okay.
can
He's telling me that we're good to go.
Can I put you on the spot and have an opening from you, just to get people acquainted with who's our fifth person that joined
Sure.
us?
Yes, thank you very much. I don't know if they read the opening statement.
We did
John?
not.
Okay, John Sullivan, current Ward 9 Alderman. I'm just finishing up my first 2-year term here in the city, and I have to say that, well, let me back up 1 second. I was late tonight. We had a city budget meeting that I had to attend, and that was the reason that I was late. So we just got out, so I raced down here and wanted to take the opportunity to chat with all you folks, and I appreciate you being here. I enjoy the work of being a ward alderman. It's been fulfilling. It really has, talking with the folks and getting the work done in the ward. So I'd appreciate your vote again when the time comes. Thanks.
Well, thank you very much. And we've been rotating questions, going back and forth, and you'll play along pretty quickly, I'm sure. Marty, Mr. Jack, I want to address one of the points you made earlier was about the rail, the commuter rail. And so are you in favor of having a commuter rail come to Nashua? And if so, would you like to explain your position?
Sure. We are following the Federal Transit Administration Small Starts project. That starts with an analysis of what to build, and we did that some years ago, and the answer was extend the Lowell line to Manchester. And then 2 terms ago, we were able to get funded the engineering analysis, which is enough engineering to get a firm project cost, environmental permitting, and so then the next step would be apply for construction funding. I was lead in the House in getting this, in shepherding this through the entire time I've been there. We're stalled right now because the Executive Council didn't want to appropriate any more money. So, but I strongly support rail. The economic benefit, if you believe the alternatives analysis, there are going to be a lot of riders, there's going to be a lot of economic development.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Tebow.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that in the Budget Committee, which I am not part of, voted for an escrow tonight for $75,000 to finish the rail research to determine if it would be viable to have rail here. I am for it, genuinely, but we also have to make sure it's viable first. Otherwise, it may not. We want to make sure it works. So, the Executive Council cut the funding to finish the project, which was just the research on whether it could be done or not. We had toll credits. We could have finished it. They chose not to. So now Nashua is trying to find a way to finish that plan, come up with a new plan themselves, and I am for that. I will be voting to make sure that $75,000 gets allocated to that, and we determine if it can be done here. Because if it can, I'm pretty sure that it would be used properly. So.
Well, let's cut right to the chase. Mr. Sullivan, did they appropriate that?
The budget committee passed $75,000 to go towards a rail study that will, from everything that I've read about it, will really answer the question of whether or not we should have rail in the city. As Ward 9 representative, I am truly ambivalent about it. I have a lot of questions. I've seen rail work. I have been fortunate enough to travel to other countries and use their public system, and it works great. The cost concerns me, ridership concerns me, but overall, passenger rail I think would be a good thing. I just want to make sure it's the right thing for us and right now.
Thank you. Mr. Sennett.
Yeah, I mean, there's, I think studying the matter is the best thing. We don't want to go into any expenditure or any ambitious project without understanding what the benefits are to the city and what the ridership would be. As somebody who did commute from Nashua to Peabody for 10 years, I do suspect that the ridership is there and that the demand might be there, because I spent many hours each week sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic on my way to the greater Boston area. People are still commuting to the greater Boston area for work from Nashua. I do feel that there would be an appetite for rail, and if the study supports it, then I would support it as well.
Thank you. Ms. Ziem?
I wouldn't say that I'm either for or against it. I'm not as familiar with I have heard that they've done any number of studies, and so I wonder how many studies you do before you do something, and I think it basically must come down to the votes. Do we have the votes to get to make it happen? And so people, your voice is your votes, and I wish more people came out and voted, to be honest with you. And so I would like my opponent, I would want to look at all of the figures and be more thoroughly analyze the cost as opposed to the benefits. Obviously, there's great cost and great benefits, but which ways? That's one of those hard decisions that I was speaking of. Thank you.
Thank you. Another area of development and revenue would be the casino that is being thought about in the Pheasant Lane Mall. Mr. Tebow, would you like to start with that? And I'll go to Mr. Jack and Mr. Sullivan and wrap around.
Sure. I mean, I don't think it's thought about. It went through the planning board. So, luckily I don't have to vote on it as an alderman. But, my ward, despite that not being my ward, it's very close, obviously. And there's people that are on both sides of it. I think the casinos in the city do good work. And when I say good work, there's a giant percentage of what they get that goes to state education, and the other part outside of the profits they make go to charities. And charities that the state and the city would never, ever, ever be able to fund that kind of money that they get. Thousands and thousands of dollars a week, right? And so, yes, there's some good to that. I mean, I don't know if it's the right place at the Pheasant Lane Mall. I'd like to do some different types of stuff there, but again, we don't own that property. You can't do something with a property that you don't own. So that's what they decided to build there, and they went to the planning board. They're in legal, it's all legal. So there's not much we can do as a Board of Aldermen to try to block that. Just hope to support it, and hopefully that money goes to charities and the people that need it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Jack?
I have a voting record over many years of never supporting casinos, and here's why. One of the reasons is that the amount of money that goes to the charities is very, very small. The rest goes to out-of-state companies that are operating the machines, and it doesn't stay in the state. They are designed to appeal to problem and addicted gamblers.
Personal experience, my father was a gambler, alcoholic to boot, and I guess because of that my heart goes out to the human element that Jack referred to. I can tell you that families are destroyed, and for my vote, one family that's destroyed, they'd have to make billions of dollars, because to me what this country needs more than anything else is our strong families. That's what's made this country great. It's what will keep our country great, and I'm so glad to see you all here, because I think it's an indication that you're a strong community member, and that's what we need.
All right, well, I think what we need is a happy question right now after that. It's the halfway point pretty much, and usually I ask, where's your go-to pizza? But I know some of you have already got an answer up your sleeve, so I'm going to say, where's your go-to sub now? Where would you go for a sub in town? And Mr. Senate, I'm going to have you start it off.
See, pizza would have been hard, and my go-to sub is too easy because it's right around the corner from my house in Crown Hill. I got to go to Dinelli's.
Yes, sir. Ms. Ziem?
I'm going to cheat. I'm going to tell you that I would go to the senior center because I happen to love the senior center.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Tebow?
I'd probably go to a Gian Pizza and Subs.
Very good, sir. Mr. Jack?
The way I do this is I rotate around among half a dozen sub shops, some of which have been mentioned, some haven't. Tried to keep them all in business.
And do you get the same sub at each place?
No, I probably have a favored menu item at every place, but it's going to be different.
Very good, sir. Mr. Sullivan?
Steak and cheese from TJ's Deli on Northeastern Boulevard.
Yes, sir. Very good. These are not advertisements for any of these restaurants. We just, have to get a personality in here. Okay, so there's been some submitted questions. And here's a question that was submitted for snow removal and sidewalks. Is this something that the aldermen have ability to have any? I honestly, I would just open it up. If anybody on the board has an answer to that, I would feed off of that. Yes, sir, Mr. Sullivan.
Whether or not sidewalks get plowed, we certainly have a direct line to Nashua DPW. Certainly the Board of Aldermen have the responsibility to fund the DPW when it comes to snow plowing, to make sure that that happens. There was an incident last year, I can't remember really the month, but there was a situation where some of the sidewalks in the city weren't plowed, and the Board of Aldermen did take note of that and I guess, hold the Nashua DPW accountable. So we have to fund it. We have to fund snow plowing to make sure that it gets done. And then the finer details, we can certainly make note of that to the certain department heads. I hope that answers the question.
Excellent. And if anybody else would like to comment on that, I'm not going to hold everybody. Absolutely, Mr. Thibault, and then Mr. Sennett.
Yes, I mean, with sidewalks, there's a couple of different responsibilities. The school department will do some of it around the schools. A lot of people down Main Street, the businesses do it themselves, and then we get the call that says, how come Main Street's always, their sidewalks are always done first? And sometimes it's the businesses that go out and do it. Alderman Moran had put in a ordinance to try to up some of the money for snow removal after he had seen an incident happen by the parking garage, and it was tabled by one of the committees. I think it was Budget Committee, and it's yet to come back. And it's unfortunate. I would support it. I think we need to make sure that we are doing that, but you got to spread the money around to lots of things in the city. So, but that's an important thing to make sure kids can get around and people can get around and no one gets hurt on the ice.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sennett.
Snow removal is something that's very close to my heart because of living in the Crown Hill neighborhood. Our neighborhood school is Dr. Crisp, which is an all-walking school. Nobody gets bused to that school. The school department and the staff at the school, Phil and his team, they do a really good job of clearing the area immediately in front of the school. But that only goes so far when kids are walking up Arlington from all the feeder streets there. And there have been many, many times where, not wanting to get into the drop-off line with my son, I've parked on one of the side streets and I've walked with his hand in one hand and a bucket of salt in the other, so that we can kind of kill two birds with one stone on our way to school. But I would certainly like to see our routes to school be as safe as they possibly can for these kids.
Is what role do you believe the government has in protecting the most vulnerable citizens that we have, our children, our homeless, our elderly, our disabled victims, and our domestic violence victims? What is a way that you think Nashua might be able to do a better job in this? And Mr. Jack, I'll start with you and loop around all the way back to Mr. Thibault.
Well, this is perhaps the most fundamental task that a government has, is to take care of its people. We have public health, which does a great job of checking on people, making sure they know where they are, trying to find them housing. We would need mental health services to wrap around to make sure that they have the mental health services that they need. We need food. We have the soup kitchen where someone who doesn't have a way to get a meal can get a meal. So it's again, it's somewhat a partnership with things like the soup kitchen, but the government has the responsibility to take care of its citizens, even ones that don't have what they need.
Thank you. I think that it has to. I think it certainly is, incumbent upon the government to start that conversation and to really make the push to help those most vulnerable, especially in this city. Let's just keep it local. But we also have a lot of great nonprofits. But it is, perhaps it's city funding, perhaps it's, other types of partnerships that we can do. But we have to, the conversation has to start there, because the city should be plugged in as far as how many people need help, what services do they need, and hopefully the city can have easy access to not only the funds, but also the organizations to help them.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sennett.
Yes, thank you. Certainly, we have an obligation to all the residents in the city, and that certainly includes these populations. I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here because I've mentioned several times tonight partnerships between city government and these nonprofit organizations that are offering these services. We need to expand and continue to hold these conversations so that city leadership is familiar with the organizations and the services that they offer, so that when our constituents are reaching out to us for help, we can connect them with the agencies that are able to connect them with the services that they need. Oftentimes, there may be a disconnect between what somebody knows and what services they need. And as city leadership, we should be that first line of communication so that when somebody comes to us, we can tell them, well, maybe I can't necessarily help you personally, but I know who can.
I would agree with you that the first line is certainly the government, but I think that it goes deeper than that. I think that all of us have an obligation to help our neighbors when we see a need. And I also think we have an obligation to make our city officials aware of the need when they're not aware. As in the case of the encampment, when the public came and cried, it was resolved. And it works, people. It really does. So I would encourage you, when you see a need, speak to your elected officials, hold them accountable. Because I think we all need that. It's a check and balance system, and when you're not checking and balancing each other, things get lopsided.
Was 100% there to make sure people are getting what they need. We're servant leaders. It's servant leadership. That's what we're here to do. We're voted on by the people to make sure that not just our wards, but the city itself is taken care of, right? And it's exactly private and public partnerships. Alderman Lopez does a great job bringing in a lot of nonprofits to help introduce us to some of these companies that can certainly help. That encampment was always supposed to be a temporary thing, and people didn't understand that, but it was never to be permanent. They were moved off by CSX, the railroad company that owned the tracks. And part of that compassion is being able to put them somewhere where we can offer them services. And instead of spreading people out all over the city, you're there to help them. And I think, we have to lead with compassion. I've supported Alderman Moran's increase to the disability tax credit, and I also supported the elderly, and I put in one for the veterans tax credit as well, that obviously the rest of the board, or some of the board, voted down. So I'm there to try to help us, so thank you.
A little bit here in the city of Nashua. Obviously, we need property taxes to pay for good, services and so on. Is there any ideas or thoughts that you would bring to the Board of Aldermen to try to reduce those property taxes, or is it just what it is what it is? And I'll go around.
As in the last, speakers, I would absolutely agree that they're not going to go down. I think we all know that. They're just not going to go down. If we're lucky, we will be able to contain them. But I do not think the way we're headed that's going to happen. I think that money is being spent. Again, when you're in leadership, you can't make all of the people happy all of the time. Sometimes you have to make hard decisions. And so I found on the school board, that was the hardest thing of all, because I wanted to give all the money to the classroom and the kids. But guess what? You have to have lights, and you have to have heat, and you have to have all of those other necessities, teachers. So that would be my take on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Tebow.
One of the things that the mayor's talked about, and something I wholeheartedly support, is we had to do a reevaluation of property every 5 years. We had to do it, right after COVID, of course. So commercial property went down and residential went up. Well, what we need to do is we need to continue to get businesses in here, right? Continue to bring in housing as well. And if that starts to change the other way, the mayor has said that we would do another reevaluation off cycle to see if we could get that down. So we can do that. I think, looking at some different, one thing we did was the electricity, right? So we couldn't bring the taxes down, but we brought electricity bills down. Eversource was really going up. They were 25, 26 cents a kilowatt per hour. We brought it down. Right now it's 10%. If you're in Nashua Community Power, not 10%, 10 cents you're paying right now, which is incredibly low. And if you're not on Nashua Community Power, you should be on it, because maybe you're not saving in taxes, but you're saving in electricity, right? And it might not be exactly, but at least you're bringing it down.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jack.
Thank you. Expanding the tax base is a great thing. If we can get more businesses and more housing, it brings in more tax revenue. The elephant in the room is what we call downshifting at the state government, which is where the state doesn't fund things at an adequate level, and it falls on the local property tax. The prime example of that is the state pension cost, which, you know, the city employees are in the state pension plan, and it has to be funded. And that's a big problem with the city budget, is that goes up.
And as a state representative, you'd probably acknowledge that education pensions as well being funded by the towns are also getting hit as well.
Right. The problem, of course, is that at any given term, you have the votes to solve the problem, or you don't.
Very good, sir. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. It's a good question. I think that when you look at it, when you look at the amount of money that comes into a city, certainly, and I do this, I do scrutinize some of the larger projects that we have and make sure that it's a long-term benefit to all the citizens of Nashua. But on the other side of it, it was talked about a little bit in that the tax rate may or may not change, or it'll go up and down on various years. However, the burden on residences is incredible. It's almost 70%, 70 cents out of every dollar that we take in falls on the citizens. Nashua has a huge advantage as far as where it's located, its proximity to Lowell, Boston, et cetera. We should use that advantage to grow our economic engine and swing that pendulum back more towards the middle. That's going to help the residents of this city lower their taxes.
So bringing in more business development.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. Mr. Senate.
Yeah, I have to, agree with Alderman Sullivan. Right now, we're in a situation where homes are exponentially valuable at the moment. Commercial properties are not. We do need to engage in really aggressive, really focused economic development to attract businesses to Nashua, to make Nashua a good place to open a business and for a business to thrive. One thing that it's almost kind of a fun topic of conversation when I'm out canvassing voters is that everybody has an idea of some sort of business that they would like to see coming to Nashua that isn't here yet. And there's so much space in the city that is ripe for development on that. Of course, part of the tax burden is going to be smart budgeting. I have a professional background in finance and accounting. I'm perfectly aware of going over those numbers and making sure that our money is being spent wisely. But if we can shift that tax burden back to the commercial sector, I think we could see a real advantage to residential property owners in the city.
Thank you. It's a little bit after 8:30, so it means it's a happy question. So please, I'll start with Mr. Sullivan and go down the line. Something that makes me proud about Nashua when you're talking to somebody who's never been here, something that makes me proud about Nashua is ... Please finish the statement for us.
Oh, wow. Boy. Did you start the clock already?
I'll start with Mr.
Gosh, one thing that I'm proud about really is the community itself. It's a safe community. The schools are great. It's a pretty clean city. I do brag about it, and it's funny because I do travel all up and down the Mid-Atlantic, and you'd be surprised how many people have heard of Nashua. They're familiar with it. So I am proud to say that I'm from here, and there's just a myriad of reasons as to why, but I would say that safety, cleanliness, and just the overall spirit of the people is great.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jack.
When the articles come out that say this is the safest city or it's the best run city, those are real feathers in our cap. And it's always great to see those.
Yeah, I could write a book about the things I'm proud about here. I'm proud to have been born here, and I'm proud to have, fourth generation Nashuan, right? And I'm proud of the culture of the history of the city. I'm proud that now we're a welcoming city, which is a designation that not too many cities in the Northeast have, and that all cultures can come here, all sexes, all genders can come here and live, and we're safe, and we have great green space, and Ward 8.
Ms. Ziem?
I would have to say that because of my 14 years on the school board, our teachers, I can't tell you how much they do for the children of this city. They parent them, they take care of their health, they feed them. We have clothes stores and used clothing where the kids can go in and get it. And that when I went to Nashua High School, I said, are the kids embarrassed about coming and asking for the clothes? And she said, no, they fight over who can get here first. I think that tells you how much poverty we have. I believe, they tell us that we have 44% poverty. I believe we have more like 60% poverty. And so I think that our teachers, I couldn't say enough good about them. They're 90% perfect.
Thank you. Mr. Sennett?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not as fortunate as Alderman Tebow to have been born here. I came here when I was 9 from Texas. But I came here when I was 9. I went to Nashua schools. I graduated from Nashua High School. I met my wife in Nashua. My wife is a Nashua native, so. And eventually we bought a home in Nashua and are now raising our son here. And as somebody who moved around a lot as a kid, I went to a different elementary school for every single grade of elementary school, sometimes two. And to be able to put down roots in a place, stay there, and maybe have the ideation that maybe one day my boy will want to do the same. You can't say enough about a town you can't say more about a town than that. I think that's something really special and something to really be proud of.
Thank you very much. Falling back to something from the first round today, Mr. Raven was talking about how he would go around and talk to a lot of his constituents and carry a little book and write notes about what the constituents were saying. Ms. Smith had said that the reason why she was running was because nobody's ever come to her door at all. And so what I'm wondering is, in talking to constituents, what are some of the issues that people in your ward have brought up that you believe deserve attention? I guess I'll start with Mr. Tebow and work my way around this way if I can.
Sure. As I go around Ward 8, there are issues that if you put them out citywide may not be big to, they may not be the big things, right? Taxes, affordable housing, even though that's obviously critical to the city. But for people that are living in my ward, it's things like there's a dead tree that's on city property that's hanging over. There's a street sign missing. Speeding's a major problem. I was going into nice neighborhoods that I couldn't believe how bad the sidewalks were. And I know 2 years ago, one of the candidates said, I'm going to go in, I'm going to fix the sidewalks, and that hasn't been done. And it's not because the person doesn't want them done, it's because it's not an easy problem to fix, because you go all over the city, the sidewalks are a mess. And it would be great to get them fixed, but that costs money. And we saw what happens with the paving program. So it's the things that affect their everyday life. And in my ward, it's speeding through the neighborhoods where kids are playing. It's being able to walk along the side to get to Bicentennial School. And so those are the things we need to try to tackle.
Thank you. Ms. Ziem, what are the people in your ward talking about?
Well, I speak to more people about schools because, of course, I was on the school board. When I go in Shaw's, inevitably parents come up, they recognize me. And that's always a joy because then I have an opportunity to hear their concerns. And they are concerned about education. Education concerns us all. If our children can't get a job when they grow up, what future will they have? And so I think education is, and I think COVID certainly set us back, way back, I would suggest. I think we lost 2 years. And when you lose 2 years, I don't think you can just put them ahead to, they've lost the foundation that they would have gotten in those 2 years, and then you build on that foundation. So I think that we expect a lot from our teachers, but again.
Thank you. Mr. Sennett, I know you're in the same ward, but.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah, people are talking about the big issues, it's, what we're all talking about collectively is the city property taxes, homelessness. But when you really get into a conversation with somebody, that's when they really do start talking about the neighborhood issues. And I think that's what's primarily on people's minds just as they go about their day. You know, I've heard a lot about dangerous intersections in the neighborhood. I think anybody who's driven through Crown Hill knows what a challenge it is to get off of Crown Street and onto Arlington Street. You take your life into your hands every time you do it. You know, people over in a little outside Crown Hill are concerned about the Fifield Street Speedway. People barreling down those roads. That's a real concern to the residents on that street. More families are moving in. They're concerned about kids playing in the street and how fast cars are coming through there. So definitely the you know, the nuts and bolts issues of the neighborhoods. That's what people want to see fixed, and you know, that's what people are really talking about when we get into it.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, what are people in Ward 9 talking about?
Ward 9, it's, you know, the issues are the same. And here comes the alliteration: speeding, sidewalks, stop signs, and those things are that's 99.9% of what I do as a ward alderman. Is we want a stop sign here, but these are great because they're conversations that need to be had. And you know, one thing in Ward 9 especially is just a couple weeks ago we had the rededication of St. Andrew's Park that 2 years ago was not very attractive, and a lot of people were kind of a little bit angry about it. And you know, we were able to get some money over there, and we were able to get some attention there, and now it's a great park, and a lot of people are thrilled at the fact that we were able to fix that park up. And you know, that to me is local government 101. That's fundamental.
Fantastic. Thank you. Mr. Jack.
Thank you. Going back to last year's state representative campaign, the thing that came up again and again and again is the potential for a property tax increase. Everyone was nervous about the revaluation and what it would do to their taxes, and they saw the tax rate, and you try to explain that, you know, you're raising the same amount of money, so you know, the rate may go up, your taxes are going to stay the same. Well, it didn't quite work out that way, but it's property taxes.
Thank you, sir. I know this is extremely heartbreaking, but we're at that point where we're ready for closing statements. And I know many of you in the audience wish this could go on till at least 11:46, but we're not going to do that. We're going to have our closing statements, and then after closing statements, if there's any questions, the candidates may want to hang around for a few minutes if people may want to have any questions that haven't been addressed. I will start with Mr. Sennett and work my way down to Mr. Sullivan. And again, as we spoke earlier, if there was any topics or issues that weren't brought up in this last hour forum, please, this is an appropriate time to talk about them. Thank you, Mr. Sennett.
Thank you, and again, thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the Nashua Public Library for hosting us tonight. We have a great city here in Nashua. We really do. I feel really privileged to live here, to be raising my family here, and I know that many people feel the same way. We've certainly got a lot of work to do to work towards a more perfect city, but I think the work is doable. My commitment, as if I'm elected Ward 7's next alderman, is to serve with an open mind and with open ears to opinions and thoughts and ideas that are different than mine. I can only see so much. I can't live in everybody's home, and I can't, you know, walk every single street, although it feels like I have recently. But nevertheless, you know, we need constituents to tell us what they're seeing, what they're concerned about, and what's on their minds so that we can be better representatives at City Hall. And my commitment to the voters of Ward 7, if they elect me on November 7th, will be to always be that open mind and that open ear to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ziem?
I'm very concerned about transparency. I'm very concerned that we're not hearing a lot of the things. I have a lot of concerns about housing, but I've had a real hard time getting answers. Now, perhaps if I'm lucky enough to be elected, I will get some of those answers, and these gentlemen certainly seem to have more than I have. But I would like to know, you know, when you have no green space, for instance, there's also housing right in back of Nashua Wallpaper where there's no green space. And they go, I think they're 4 or 5, they look to be quite large. And so there's no green space there. So I'd like to know, is there a requirement, and was an exception made so that they didn't have to have green space? So, because that should have been part of a public conversation. We need to have more public conversations. That's more transparency, more open government. And so thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll all vote for me.
Thank you. Mr. Tebow.
To the League of Women Voters, the Public Library, Bob, George, and Dave for having us here today, and everybody that came. So I'm going to continue to lead with compassionate leadership if I get elected. If you ask people in my ward, have I answered their emails? Have I answered their phone calls? Have I answered them when they've come up to me? There won't be one that will say they haven't heard back from me. That's what we're here to do, support those people. And not only are we just for our wards, but we're all for Nashua. No matter what you hear out there, when we're ward aldermen, we're still voting on things, all for Nashua. So, you know, I want to continue to do the things I'm doing. I do a weekly newsletter every single week since I've been in office for 2 years. I've sent a weekly newsletter and let people know what's going on in the city. Every meeting, every agenda, so they know. And you can't say that people, if they want in Ward 8 to know about it, all they have to do is come to me. It doesn't matter who they are. I will put them on that. So thank you. Vote for me on 11/7, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Jack.
My colleagues at the State House who have done both, say that the city work informs the state work and the state work informs the city work. My intention would be to continue to do both. My approach to legislating is thoughtful and fact-based and non-ideological. My approach to budgeting is frugal and spend money on things that need to be funded. So I would ask your vote on November 7th, and thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sullivan.
I want to thank everybody in the audience that came out tonight. I want to thank my colleagues for joining me, and again, apologies for being late. I'll stay after in case anybody wants to ask me questions. I ran 2 years ago to bring Nashua government back to Ward 9. I felt that we were underrepresented at the table, and I really wanted to raise our hand and make sure that we got the things that we wanted done at City Hall. I feel that I've done that, and I want to continue to do that. Every email is replied to, every phone call is answered, and I'm going to continue to do that. I look at budgets, I pick them apart. I am fiscally responsible as we go along. But overall, you know, I understand the needs of the city, but I think that, you know, me being at the table, around the table, brings some new ideas into the city and a different way of thinking. And I would appreciate your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
All right, and thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. And it's November 7th, correct? And in Ward 9, where do we vote?
New Searles Elementary.
And Mr. Tebow in Ward 8? And Mr. Sennett in Ward 7?
Dr. Crisp Elementary.
And what day is it?
November 7th.
Ladies and gentlemen, November 7th. It's a few Tuesdays from now. Please get out, register. If you have to, you can register, same-day registration. It takes no time whatsoever. Bring a photo ID and a piece of mail with your address on it. If you don't have the address, you can swear on an affidavit, and you'll still be able to get to vote within 5 minutes. Please come out. We have 5 candidates that showed up tonight to give us their views and their opinions. We hope this helped you in a better understanding of what these gentlemen and ladies are looking forward to do as ward aldermen if elected. Please come out and show your support by voting. We want to thank all candidates for coming out. Truly, you are certainly the visionaries of our town, and we're happy to have you. We women voters for putting on this, and also last week as well, and then next week, I believe, too, with the Board of Education. So thank you all, and then there's a mayor one as well. There's a whole ton of things the League of Women Voters are doing, so thank you very much. Please have a safe night.